The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guests today are Mayor Sue Carleton of Georgian Bluffs and Hailey Thomson, who's on the staff of Georgian Bluffs, who is their communications person. But as I said to Sue and to Hailey just before we started, Sue's a great communicator. She doesn't need any help, but there's probably things that she can refer to. So Hailey, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here, David.
And Sue, it has been a while.
It has been, yes.
Yeah, a lot of water under the bridge.
Yes.
A lot of things have happened.
A lot of changes going on.
Speaking of bridges, that's probably a good place to start. I noticed that Georgian Bluffs has a bridge that is out, and it's been out for several years. And it's on where is it? Side Road 3.
Yes.
Between one of the concessions and the Grey Bruce line.
Yes.
And I have to say, I went and looked on Google Maps because you can see just about anything, including your neighbor's laundry if you want, on Google Maps. And you can see where the bridge is actually out.
So that is not a well-used bridge, but it is used by farmers in the area. And so it's up for public comment right now, I think, on the website. And normally with that low a usage, you wouldn't necessarily consider replacing it. But the alternative is throwing farmers and equipment out on the Grey Bruce County line. And that's not perhaps the best place to have them going out to. So we need to do some work on that one, see what we can do to replace it at the most economical amount, because bridges are not known for being cheap. We're also doing the Emery Bridge up on just beside the Keppel-Sarawak town line. So that one is in process this summer, I think, being replaced. As well as actually work on the town line bridge up there. So,
if you say the word bridges to any municipal politician, yes, they'll go, "Oh yeah, I got a list."
We all have a list of them, and they're all old.
Yes. You might want to have a conversation with Mayor Kantner in Meaford because they did some very interesting things with their bridge. So, who knows? And this is the thing. We don't think of farmers having to move equipment between fields, but that is very much a reality.
Yes, very much so. And it's the same in the Emery Bridge. By not having that bridge in place, it's pushing farmers out onto Grey Road 1. So you have to weigh the options of the cost of the actual bridge and where you're diverting traffic to. And is that the safest place for it to be?
And the other thing is economic cost. We see it. We see the capital cost of a bridge replacement. And Evergreen has a great intake of breath because they're not cheap. No. But if you look at that bridge over 25, 50, even 100 years, it's not expensive.
No, and normally bridges are given a 50 to 75 year lifespan when we're looking at our asset management plans.
So does Georgian Bluffs have money set aside for that kind of capital repair? For example, Meaford has 1% of their set aside and they're going into a fund for bridge repairs and replacements.
We have reserve funds for bridges. We haven't done the same as what Meaford has done with a specific allocation every year at budget. It's a good idea. It's been brought up before. Councils in the past haven't overly favored it, but it's certainly something for us to consider going forward with the number of bridges that are going to need to be replaced.
And with the infrastructure deficit that every municipality has, It's more than a bridge here and a bridge there. It's recreational buildings. There's a variety of municipal properties that are aging out or becoming dangerous in some cases.
Yep.
I don't think we're quite yet at the massive arena closures that we had 50 years ago. But those arenas are now reaching the end of life as well.
They are. And most of us with amalgamation landed up with every amalgamated township had its own arena and it had its own workshop. So those structures are aging as well. And for Georgian Bluffs, we're somewhat looking at, should we be having just one main workshop, especially for outside workers, for the plow routes and all of that? I don't think we'll ever take away all those arenas. Will they be actual arenas or will they be community centers? But I think they're an important piece of the fabric of every individual community.
Yes, that's very, very true. And not to forget the salt domes.
Which are usually incorporated into our workshops, the
Right.
work sheds. Yep.
And there are some that have collapsed. Some, they've just met reached their end of life.
Yep. And the structure of some of those salt domes wasn't necessarily the best building format. It was deemed to be 30, 40 years ago, but now they're looking at it and saying there's some different buildings, different ways of covering that salt. The county faces more of that than maybe the municipalities do.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Which reminds me, I'll have that conversation with the warden next time I have her on Politically Speaking. But since we alluded to budget, that's a very interesting question because municipal councils are now beginning the first stages of their 26 budgeting processes. And I know, in Sound, it was they've started on their capital budget. I presume your staff are beginning to put the pieces together for Georgian Bluffs.
We have been working on that for a while between staff and council. So our most recent meeting about it was to determine levels of service. And are the current levels of service adequate? Do we want to increase them, decrease them? Where should we be going with that? And how is that going to impact the financial picture going forward? Because we don't want to call it a budget until we're ready for the mayor to present that budget. Otherwise,
and therein lies a very, very important explanation, because this refers to strong mayor powers.
It does. Yep. So I took part in, it was the company that put this one on was Learners LLP, a group of lawyers. And they had Lynn Dolan, the mayor of Innisfil, who's had strong mayor powers for a while, and Cheryl Gannon, the mayor of West Lincoln, who is, like me, new to strong mayor powers. And what Lynn arrived at, because you can't call it budget, so it has to become a financial planning process. And what she arrived at was a sequence of financial planning, what we've just done with levels of service, to arrive at a point where council is, and apparently council can't direct the mayor to do it, but that council is suggesting this be the budget that the mayor present to all of council. So at the end of the process, so for us, it's going to be November 14th, is when the mayor, myself, will present that budget to all of council. So we have to find a way to stay with all of council being included. So that means calling it something different. So in our case, it's levels of service, strategic planning, operational levels. We can't say budget until we're right at that final point.
Why do I have a funny feeling a lawyer drew up this legislation?
Or somebody as a bureaucrat who has absolutely no idea of what happens at the municipal level. But that's a personal opinion.
Well, you're on record now.
So. Yeah, I know. There was nothing wrong with the process before. I think what they were trying to arrive at was ensuring everybody has budgets in place by a specific period in time. That might have been an easier thing to implement than to turn it into just being a mayor's budget.
Well, I think there's another piece to that, and that is that it be by making it the mayor's budget, you have the ability to veto anything that is inconsistent with provincial priorities. So you become a tool of the, I use that word tool in quotation marks, of the province's agenda.
So I can't veto anything that's their priorities. I have to promote their priorities.
Mhm. No, I mean the council. You can veto if council tells you to do something that is not consistent with the provincial priorities. Your obligation is to veto it.
Yes, if I have 1/3 support from council.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an incredibly complicated system that I think is more complicated than it needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that municipal councils will grow into this new process? I mean, we've got a number of municipalities, much larger, who have the experience, but do you think that there will be some growing into this budget among the smaller municipalities?
I don't know. It's every council makeup is going to be different. I think what could happen going forward in a really contentious budget year, if the mayor has not presented that council by February 1st, it then becomes council's budget. So in a really contentious budget year where things are really hard to bring together at a rate that the residents are going to be comfortable with, I can see some mayors not presenting a budget and letting it turn to all of council.
So basically, the responsibility of council for the budget becomes a council responsibility, and they are responsible for seeing that it meets the provincial priorities as well, is consistent with the provincial priorities as well.
I think so. It becomes they then have to be the ones to present or to arrive at the budget.
Yeah.
I would think it has to still meet provincial priorities. I don't think they can not do that.
Yeah, that's my understanding. And this is a complex issue that is not going to go away. I suspect that, I dare say there will be many more education sessions for councils as you navigate this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of little twists to it that we don't all know yet. So
I was talking to someone recently who said, this really does change the landscape of municipal politics, because you've got to be you've got to have a whole different skill and knowledge set now, what you did before.
Yeah, and it all depends on who your mayor is and what approach they decide to take, what impact you're going to have as a council member, deputy mayor, or any councillor. What input do you have if the mayor chooses? Because the mayor can choose, even though I've been a little later in making the declarations than others because I wanted to have all the information before I did. So that's going to come forward next Wednesday, July 2nd. But the next mayor coming in can decide not to delegate those authorities back to the CAO or back to the rest of council. And the council members aren't going to know that until they're all elected and after the inaugural meeting.
And the next question is, will the voters know before they go to the polls?
They won't know how the mayor is going to handle it. in most cases, because the mayor maybe not, somebody brand new running may not even be aware of that themselves. The other aspect of it is, and I said this to staff as we were talking today, really all you have to have council there for is to have quorum, because without quorum, you can't have a meeting. Like, there are so many little nuances to this that make it difficult for the municipalities to actually continue the business of the municipality.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking is it changes the interpersonal dynamics of council, whereas the role of the mayor was to bring people together and develop consensus,
Yes.
which takes time. It's not the most efficient method of governance, but it does work, and it has worked.
And it makes sure everybody is heard. If your mayor is doing that job properly, they are making sure everybody's voice is heard before they're calling the vote. So if everybody on that council is representing a different factum of the residents, then all voices are being heard. But it now almost comes back to the mayor can override whatever the rest of council says. And I think that power in the hands of the wrong person means they're not necessarily going to listen to their council.
It is much more a CEO type of governance as opposed to a collaborative form of governance.
Yep.
If I understand it correctly.
I think so.
Yeah. I have a suspicion the next election campaign is going to be very, very interesting. Now it's a little too early for me to ask, are you going to run again? But that'll come up in our next season. All right.
But I'm sure I'm like a lot of them in considering all of this and thinking, how does this impact whether I want to run again or not? What kind of battle is going to be taking place? And it's going to be a power position battle for that top spot. I come back to the fact, I think somebody in bureaucracy had the right idea. They wanted to promote the provincial priorities, and they thought this would be the way to do it. But what they missed was that they took democracy right out of it, and that should never happen. So if their idea was to not give all of council that power or that much power, they didn't achieve what they were looking to do, because they took total power away from council and put it in one person's hands. And that's not the way our democracy has ever worked and shouldn't.
I wonder if we will see more acclamations.
At the council level, quite possibly, because everybody's going to choose to run for the mayor's spot. Even the deputy mayor is going to say, I don't need to be that close to the action. I'll just be a councillor. Yeah, because even if I can't be at a meeting, I can ask the deputy mayor to stand in for me, but he doesn't get my authority. He just gets to chair the meeting.
Interesting. That did occur recently at Owen Sound Council when Deputy Mayor Grigg stepped in and Mayor Body was absent.
Yep.
And there was some confusion around that. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. No, you cannot delegate your mayor's authority in that respect. So somebody standing in for you to chair a meeting doesn't get your authority.
Well, I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation a year from now, not just with you, but with all of
everybody,
our municipal politicians, because this reminds me, I'll be honest with you, Sue, this reminds me of the changes that occurred in municipal government in the late 1990s when the Mike Harris government brought in amalgamation. And also changed some of the landscape municipally, not just in terms of the geography. but also some of the other things. One of the things I remember distinctly was that often school boards and municipal government went hand in hand. They haven't gone hand. It was as I referred to it with one of our where I was living, one of our politicians. The school board was the B team, the training ground.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen anymore. We have much longer term, at least here, much longer term school trustees.
Yes. Yeah, once you get in as a school trustee, you seem to be in as long as you want to stay there.
Yeah. And they tend to be uncontested elections as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not as much interest in being at that level.
Yeah. But having known a couple of school trustees and having interviewed them, they really do interesting work, important work.
Yes.
But it's different from municipal government.
Yep.
Well, we've really gone into the weeds on that one, Sue, but I really appreciate your observations, because this will kind of set the tone for our next season. I think that our municipal politicians have got some very interesting journeys of discovery. But what about staff, Hailey? I can see you off camera nodding your head when Sue was saying, talking about the strong mayor powers. From a staff perspective, is this also meant learning for staff as well?
It has certainly been a big change, and I know our clerks department in particular has been working really hard on kind of getting their head around how this changes things procedurally at council. And yeah, I mean, we are already thinking about the election for next year and how we're preparing for that. And so for us, from a communication standpoint, we just want to really make sure that everybody understands the changes as much as they can, so that everybody can participate in the election and in the democratic process in the way that that makes sense. So it's certainly been a learning curve. We were all trying to figure this out as soon as it got announced. And I know Georgian Bluffs isn't alone in that. It was across the board. Everybody had to pivot pretty quickly, I think. But yeah, big props to our clerks team. I think they've done a really good job of getting themselves educated and doing a lot of research. And there will be a report coming at next week's council meeting to help with some of that delegation of strong mayor powers.
Excellent. Now, which reminds me, you raised the question. You said you're already working on the election. Are there any changes you can announce? Are you keeping with your same voting methods that you've used in the past?
So if I'm remembering correctly from the clerk's department, we're going with telephone and online voting as well in the next election, which we also used previously. It was very successful. I think the online voting in particular, the telephone voting was a bit lower uptake on it, but the online voting was quite popular. So we'll be proceeding with that again. And it's going to be a lot of the same kind of things you see before every able to go to the voter lookup site and make sure that their information's there and registered and correct so that they can get their correct voter card. And then when they get their voter card, they'll be able to vote remotely, or we will have drop-in stations where people can come in and vote in person if that's how they prefer to do it. So we really do try to get around the community and make it as easy and accessible as possible for everyone to take part in that process.
And if I'm not mistaken, the voters list for the first time will not be compiled locally. It'll be provided by Elections Ontario, if I'm not mistaken, and it'll be compiled not just from property lists, but also from the Ontario voters list, which should make confusion a lot less.
Yeah, we're hoping with the new process that the information will be more up to date and more accurate. There's always a few people, who have moved or something's changed on their information, and so we have to update that manually. But we're hoping with this round, we'll have good, correct data, and people will be able to vote nice and easily with no hiccups along the way.
And the other thing I really like about the computer voting system is the results are fast.
Yep, I remember the days of sitting out and counting the hand submitted ballots, but with the online system, it is a click of a button, and you know exactly what the results are. So it's a pretty slick system, I'll say.
But I have to say that for Rogers TV, it makes for dull TV. because all of a sudden we know who the winners are. So we just got to then we got to do the post-mortem on the election. And okay, an hour later, we're done.
Everyone goes to bed early that night.
Everybody goes to bed early, it's unlike the provincial or the federal election, the last federal election. Golly, but yeah, it was another big change. Another big change. Anyway, well, let's move on to a few other things that are happening in Georgian Bluffs. By the way, I was in Shallow Lake today, and I noticed the sidewalks are getting marked up. And I understand there's a scooter involved in that.
Yeah, we use a service provider that does street scanning for us. So they ride along the sidewalks and it scans the sidewalks and to identify any areas that need to be repaired. So the street scan scooter has been out this year and scanning up the sidewalks. And council has invested $100,000 every year. So last year and this year as well in improving sidewalk sections in Shallow Lake. So we've got another little investment. We'll get another stretch fixed up. And yeah, thanks to the scanner, we can identify the areas most in need, and then we can prioritize them.
Right, right. When do you expect the pavement to start, or the sidewalks to start to rip up?
Good question. I don't have an exact timeline yet from our operations department, but certainly sometime this summer they'll get out there and get them fixed up.
Well, we shall see what we shall see. It's always. I'll tell you though, if there's construction in Shallow Lake, that's going to be a very and it intrudes on the traffic on Highway 6. That'll slow things down.
I don't know that the ones right down the highway are in the most serious need of replacement, because we did $100,000 worth of work on sidewalks last year. And it was really well received by the residents. It made life so much simpler for so many of them. So probably the next section will be on kind of one of the back streets away from that main drive-through.
Right. So it won't affect traffic coming on highways up on 6.
Shouldn't affect 6 now. No.
I have noticed in the last couple of weeks we're getting back into the heavy traffic time. It's and the police have been out.
Good. They were paying them to be.
Well, in typical Canadian fashion, we have 2 seasons. We have winter and then we have roadwork season. So Georgian Bluffs certainly sees a bit of that as well. So we do have our gravel program has been underway. Our surface treatment program, our single surface treatment program has started as well. So we've got 8 road sections that are going to be getting single surface treatment over the next couple months. So we certainly will have workers out and people will see slowdowns in a few areas. Really, we just ask that everyone follow the signs, drive with caution around our workers. We want everyone to stay safe and get home at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we're improving the roads. So if you can give us a little bit of patience while we fix things up, we appreciate it.
And the other side of that, Hailey, is if you see a sign that says loose gravel, slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone who was traveling at an excessive speed and hit a patch of loose gravel, ditched their truck. It wasn't pretty.
And we do put signage up when our fresh gravel goes down. So keep an eye out for that fresh gravel ahead sign. It does take a couple of weeks for it to settle. It takes a bit of rain for it to settle, which we haven't gotten a whole ton of yet over the past few weeks. There have been a few bursts here and there, but it's been fairly dry. So yeah, definitely on gravel roads, you always want to drive to the conditions and take it easy.
Absolutely. And with that, we've got to take a break. So just hang with us, folks. I'm David Shearman, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sylvie Dow, and I have a cycling tip for you. So when you might be out on the road and you end up breaking your chain, it's a freaky thing, but this is how you're going to fix it. First, you need your chain links. that are specific for your chain, and you need a multi-tool with a chain break tool. So this is what's gonna happen. Your chain is gonna break and it's going to look like this. Now, you take your chain break tool and you make sure that the 2 pins are lined up as so, and then you start screwing your chain link tool right into, and you're gonna push this pin out, and you're gonna hear that click. Now you're gonna push the pin all the way until it looks and removed like this. So you have one open end, and you'll have your other open end of your chain. So this is the prime time where you're gonna put your link back in, and like so, and fix it and replace your new link, your broken link, and off you go.
Welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guests today are Mayor Sue Carleton of Georgian Bluffs and Hailey Thomson, who is one of the staff members responsible for, I'm sure, a bunch of things, but mostly communication. Hailey, good to have you with us.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Now, we've been talking about all kinds of technical stuff, but I want to circle back to something that we had on our last show. We had Brittany Drury, and she has now formally been named as the interim CAO for the municipality because Niall Lobley has been elevated to the county.
Yes.
So that's all in place, and now are you
That's
doing
all in place and working very well. And at next Wednesday's meeting, council will choose who they're wanting to call in for interviews in the first round, and then second round will be somewhere closer to the end of July, and then we'll move on in August, hopefully, with negotiations and contract and all of that. So we're trying to move the process fairly quickly, but we still want to give it the time that it should have. So we're into that now.
So, you're doing this as an internal process, not without an external. There's no external consultant involved.
No. And nothing against external consultants. I think that slows the process, and we've used them before. And I think with our history of turnover and such, all of council got to the point of we wanted to control the process ourselves. And we did last time when we hired Niall, felt that worked really well. So that's why we're staying with that process. And I think part of the reasoning is what happens when you have an outside consultant is they go through the list of applicants. They choose who they're going to shortlist for you. And that could mean that there's somebody doesn't make that shortlist that council would have said, hey, they would have been perfect for this job, but you never see them. And so I think that's why we didn't want to have that happen. We want to see everybody that's applying so that we can determine who we're going to interview. And as I say, when we hired Niall, that process worked extremely well. So I think that's why council chose to go that road again.
Yes, and while there may be some, I'll say, local preference in some cases, at the same time, Niall came from outside the area.
Came from outside the area, but he had been working for the township for a year, maybe. I forget just how long he had been with us.
Yeah.
So, but in a different capacity. Yep. And yeah.
And I've seen in talking with the politicians over the years, I have seen a fair amount of mobility within Bruce Simcoe, Grey counties at the municipal level, and it's I wouldn't call it musical chairs, but it's people will move from one to another, develop a skill set or a different set of skills, and it all of a sudden they come back to a neighboring municipality.
And one of the things that I think happens there, change in council can have an effect because as CAO, you're reporting directly to council. But I think even within a municipality, we have different skill sets depending on different times. And so I think those two reasons are part of why you'll see CAOs move around a bit. Because with a new council coming in, maybe that's not the direction they want to be going in. And that particular CAO doesn't have the skill set that's needed. So things shift and it can come back around later. It's just kind of an evolving situation. And I'll go back to, I think, one of the reasons that council wanted to move the process through fairly quickly is for the rest of staff, to give them we're not in a position to say we're going to take 6 months to do this process, because I don't think that's fair to the rest of staff. It's an upheaval on them. It's added work on all of them, I'm sure. So we want that process moving through fairly quickly, and doing it ourselves seemed like the best way to achieve that.
Right. Right. And we always need to say that the CAO is the sole employee of council.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every other employee is an employee of the municipality, not the council.
That's right.
So always good to remember that truth.
Yes.
The difference between governance and operations, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of operations, I have to ask if Georgian Bluffs is an especially lucky operation. I mean, the headline was great. Hydro One will receive $10,000, or Georgian Bluffs will receive $10,000 from Hydro One to support recovery from the March 2025 ice storm. What's the story there?
So for the most part, it was the northern part of the municipality that really got hit hard. So going back in and all the brush cleanup, the trees that were down, all that type of work that needed to be done. And where roads got cleared as quickly as possible, you still have to go back and finish that cleanup later. And Hailey may have more to add to this than what I've said, but it was nice to be able to have that fund to reach out to see if we could get help with that, because that's an unbudgeted an event that you couldn't account for. So.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty brutal up towards the Kemble area and the north area of the township. I know our operations staff, our road staff, they were working really hard that weekend to keep things clear and keep things tidied up and restore access, as well as Hydro One out restoring hydro. But yeah, it takes a lot of time, and that was a rough storm in what had already been a pretty rough winter. So yeah, we're incredibly grateful for the extra support to help get that tidied up. Mother Nature comes at you pretty hard every once in a while. So any support we can get to help get that work done is very much appreciated.
I was talking to a couple of maple syrup producers, and they have this has been absolutely awful. I know one producer had to dump 300 or 400 buckets of sap because they just couldn't get to it with their equipment. In another producer over closer to Meaford lost 25% of their trees. So it really hit hard.
And we saw similar. The ice storm was just before our Kemble Maple Tour, which we held in early April every year. Super popular event where you can go and stop by a bunch of maple producers. We had the family fun fair at the Kemble Arena. I think we had over 700 people through the building this year. It was one of our most popular yet. But one of the producers had to drop out because they had so much damage on their property, which was really unfortunate to see. So definitely hit hard on some of our maple producers, and we're hoping that they can get the support they need and rally again for next year so they can get back up and running.
Hey, there's nothing better than good maple syrup.
Yes.
Okay, I'm biased, but good local maple syrup is absolutely fabulous. Anyway, Well, it's nice to see. And the other big news, speaking of money, is you got a very large grant for community improvement. Is that right?
Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. So we got 825,000.
Okay, Sue, I can just see the dollar signs in your eyes. What's the plan?
When we applied for that, we had 6 key priorities. So the playground equipment at the Kemble Athletic Fields, where the 50% funding that we need to match with is being fundraised by a group out there. They are working on that. We had said if we got the grant, then we would support them. Fencing and bleachers at the Shallow Lake Park baseball field, because those are at a stage where they need to be replaced. Some washroom upgrades at Shallow Lake Community Center as well. New playground upgrades at Sarawak Family Park, which we had Saturday, the longest day of play at Sarawak Family Park, which I think didn't end up being as long as we would have liked because of the storm that rolled in. But the consultants were there looking for input from people about the proposal on changing the equipment there. Hopefully they got lots of input. I was there briefly in the morning and then had to leave. And there'll be other opportunities for people to talk about that. There's some rail trail enhancements and LED lighting upgrades at Balmy Beach tennis courts. So lots of different places that we're going to utilize those funds and improve things across the township.
Great, great. Yeah. Well, we'll have to in the fall get the ticket on what has been done, because those are all big projects that it might not be this year, but certainly by next year they'll be in play.
I think we have to have all that finished by the end of 2026.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
we've
so I
got a
think
little bit of time.
a lot of the design and consultation work is going to be going on this year. So as the mayor mentioned, at our longest day of play last Saturday, we had some concept designs and got some feedback from people about the Sarawak Family Park. So we're looking to replace the play equipment and also transition to a rubberized surface underneath the play structure. So that'll be our first sort of rubberized playground, which is a really, really wonderful, accessible surface for the play structure. So we're really excited about that, and we got some great feedback from people who use it with their little ones on what they'd like to see. We're looking to extend some parking at Sarawak as well, and then also add the playground equipment up at the Kemble Arena. So we'll be having some consultation on that. So if people want to stay tuned, our engagement site engagegb.ca, we'll have some concept drawings and some draft playground equipment, and people can let us know what they'd like to see.
Rubberized surfaces. Boy, we've come a long way from sand and wood chips, haven't we? My God. Oh, I feel.
Well, and one of the areas that gets used so much is there's a Moby mat at the Sarawak Family Park.
Yes.
That lets people in a wheelchair get right down to the water's edge. And that is really popular. And it's nice to see everybody be able to access that water's edge there. So,
and that's a nice beach.
It is. Yeah.
It's a lovely beach. I've been there a few times, and it's a lovely beach. So great.
And it's not just people in that local area. I happened to be there one day, and I got talking to 2 young women and their children, and they had driven over from Lion's Head. They had to go shopping, but the kids got a promised treat at Sarawak Family Park. So it's not just people right around those areas anymore. I've been assured by mothers of young children that they travel to find places to take their children.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's right. And the better quality is of the experience is what matters. Now, will the equipment be made in Shallow Lake? Or is that too soon to tell?
Can't say on that. I should also add, though, at Sarawak Family Park, that's where Scenic City Order of Good Cheer worked with the township just through and just after COVID on upscaling those washrooms there so that they are totally handicapped accessible now.
Great. Yeah. That's great. Great stuff. Well, it's an exciting thing, especially when Paul Vick. In fact, I'll be talking to Paul, I'm sure, in the fall, when Paul Vickers can do this stuff and share that, because it's all part of our what we have in common.
Mhm.
So it's great. Good stuff.
Yes.
Now, going back to my list here, Yoga in the Park is another program you're running as well.
Yeah, we're very excited to offer our yoga in the park this year. It's our first time doing it again at Sarawak Family Park. We're really trying to offer some activities at some of our really beautiful waterfront spots. So we've got, I think it's every 2 weeks on Sundays until into July and August. That we're having a local yoga teacher, Julie Bradley Lowe from Stone Grove Wellness, down at Sarawak Park on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Doing a little yoga session. So she had her first one this past Sunday, and apparently it was very well attended, and people really enjoyed it. So yeah, we're inviting everybody to come out and enjoy a nice morning stretch on our beautiful waterfront.
And if I read the press release correctly, you have to bring a yoga mat. There will be some available that you can use. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we do ask people to bring mats if they have one, but we do have a few spares just in case anyone needs it. And we do have some chairs available as well if anyone needs to do a seated yoga for accessibility reasons. We've accommodated that also.
Great, great. I find these programs like yoga, tai chi are very popular because they get people out, but they also serve a great social function. Who knows who you'll meet there? You might even meet the mayor.
And
Maybe not.
we started yoga last year at our Canada Day celebration. We did yoga
Right.
before our flag raising on the Big Bay Dock, which is a beautiful spot because it's the nice big beautiful pier, so you're right out over the water. And so we're doing that again this year on our Canada Day for July 1st, and then we've also added in these Sarawak days because it was just popular and well attended.
Great. Which reminds me, what else is happening Canada Day? Hailey?
Well, same as usual, we've got our breakfast down at Big Bay. So the yoga will start at 8 a.m., an hour of yoga on the pier, and then we'll do our flag raising at the flagpole out on the pier and breakfast, courtesy of Heat and Eat, on the Big Bay Dock property. So it's a great way to kind of kick off your Canada Day. Start in the morning. We'll have some waffles or pancakes, lots of maple syrup to get you in the mood, and yeah, enjoy the sunshine and the community out there in Big Bay.
Great. Great. Well,
And I think Inner Township Fire Department is going to be out there as well this year, which was well attended last year because the kids just love to see the fire truck.
Yeah, we'll have a fire truck out.
touch a truck.
Yep.
And we'll have some balloon animals getting twisted up as well.
Nice. Yes, what is it about little boys in fire trucks or big boys in fire trucks?
Little girls in fire trucks now too.
That's true.
It is
That's
true.
very true. Which are there women on Inter Township now?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, good.
And interesting that so we had some award recognition for the firefighters this morning at Inner Township Fire Department. And I was speaking with one of the captains, and he commented on the diversity of the volunteers with Inner Township Fire Department now. And he said sometimes the girls may feel like we're sticking them in a corner somewhere, but he said because they tend to be a little smaller than the guys, there are places where they can go that the guys can't go. And he said they are a very important, integral part of the fire department. So it was interesting to talk to him because he was quite expansive about everybody that joins and the skill sets that they bring there. So it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's the advantage of a department like Inter Township. It's larger than a full-time fire department in terms of numbers, but people bring a whole pile of different skill sets.
Yep. And that's what he commented. We've got plumbers and electricians and contractors and heavy equipment operators. So there's so much is brought to the table with all the different people that have signed up. But yes, we have men and women there. Excellent.
Which reminds me, see a flashing green light in your rearview mirror, pull over.
Yes.
It's not the law, but it could be your neighbor's house that needs that fire engine.
Yep, that's right.
So But the other thing about the fire department is that two members of Intertownship received the Ontario Provincial Police Commissioner's citation for life saving.
Yes. Two of ours, so our fire chief and deputy fire chief, as well as one fireman from Owen Sound. What we had this morning, so they received their recognitions a couple of weeks ago down in Jarvis. What we had this morning was Paul Vickers came to Intertownship Fire Department because it wasn't just those three that were involved in that rescue. We had, I forget if it was 22 or 26 of our department members were there involved in that rescue. And our fire chief and deputy chief felt that the other members of the department weren't getting the recognition they felt they deserved. So we had a special awards by Mr. Vickers this morning for the rest of them. And probably we'll have something done again at the regular awards ceremony in the fall for Intertownship.
And just to be clear, this was the feed mill at Mennonite Corner
Yes.
where the silo collapsed.
Yes. Yeah.
And there were 6 workers who were injured, some seriously.
Yeah.
And I gather that the interesting thing was that they kind of jury rigged a rescue platform using because the ladders, none of the ladders could go up to the top of the silo.
That's right.
And so they brought in a crane.
Yep. And that was some innovative thinking on the part of Intertownship Fire Department. How do you get up there and get up there quickly?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sometimes the equipment doesn't meet standard or doesn't meet the needs, so you gotta necessity is a mother of invention.
That's right.
The old saying goes. Well, it's great.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job that day. So good they were recognized for all of them. Absolutely.
Very much so. There's a lot of little stories in behind that event, and this is one of them. And they're only coming out now. And this was really a community effort.
Yes.
I became aware there was a translation issue with some of the workers, and somebody made a phone call to the newcomer program at the Y. And within 30 minutes, there was someone who could speak that language on site.
Yep.
You know, who could speak? Who can speak that language? Well, boom, we've got the resources. It just was a matter of, and that's how we work. That's how things happen around Grey Bruce.
Yes, for sure. And I had heard that story before too, and I'd forgotten about that one. So yes.
Yeah, it really does. That's how we work together.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just looking at my list here. I was going to ask you, Sue, is there anything from the county that is of importance these days? County kind of drops off the agenda or stays quiet unless there's something really contentious.
I've got 2 things here in front of me. One of them is to do with the funding that's been received by Bruce, Grey, and Wellington counties for the rural transit study. And maybe Dufferin's in on that one.
Yes, they
Grey
are.
County is taking the lead on that one to study transit and how we can get a plan in place that provides some transit. So the county had been working on a program that expired at the end of March this year. It was working well. People were using it, and it's, I think, understanding that rural transit is totally different to transit in the urban centers. And how do we make that work? So the study is starting, and that will be with Grey taking the lead, as I said, and working with the other counties to figure out what we can do. SMART is involved in that as well, and what we can do for accessible transit.
Yeah, and that's a 5-year grant, not just a 1-year shot. This is serious business.
Yes. And some serious dollars for us to work with.
Yes.
To make sure we get something in place going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is the county's been doing some advocacy for childcare. Some frustration at the provincial reduction in planned childcare spaces in Grey County, and we're committed to advocating for local families to make sure there's access to affordable quality childcare. So the province kind of backed off on some of the funding. So we have already fulfilled our allocation that we've been reduced to. So we don't have anywhere to grow yet. So we can't start adding any more in. So we'll keep lobbying at the provincial level to keep after them to get those funding spaces back.
Yes, because what I understand happened is that Grey Bruce was allocated X, but the province came back and clawed some of those places back and redistributed them to other municipalities across the province.
Yes, and I think what they did is base that on the growth in the other municipalities and the growth in Grey and Bruce. So they're looking at it and saying, well, there's more growth there. You're not having the growth, so we're going to take those spaces and give them to the places that they deem to maybe need them more. And they may well be right, but we'd still like to get them back for our own people.
Well, Mayor Kentner says there's lots of growth happening in Meaford, and I know that there's within a year or two, things will be hopping here in Owen Sound, and I'm quite sure that things will be happening in Georgian Bluffs as well.
Yep. We hope so.
Yeah. It's an ongoing thing, and I'm presuming you have Mr. Vickers' phone number and email address.
Yes. Oh yes. We can do speed dial there.
Right. I remember Brian Milne, who's the mayor of Southgate, saying that the most important thing is to get the business card.
Yes.
Get the business card. It was so I'm presuming you've got
yes.
the business card.
Yeah, he phoned me about something. So that was just like, oh, let's save that information.
Well, the thing is, you're not phoning him, he's phoning you. So
that's right. In that case, he was phoning me, but I saved the information. So
good stuff. So are you, does we've only got about a minute left, but I wanted to ask you, does council meet in August when AMO is on, or does it take a holiday in August?
We are taking a holiday. I don't know. I think there is actually one meeting in August, but something off the top of my head, I don't know. We do take a break. So we have, I think, 2, maybe 3 meetings in July, and then we'll be off for a bit of a break. And looking ahead, I actually don't remember if there's one at the end of August after AMO.
Well, that means that you need a vacation. And on that note, thank you both, Hailey Thomson of Georgian Bluffs staff, and Mayor Sue Carleton, for joining me today on Politically Speaking. Always a pleasure to catch up on what's happening in Georgian Bluffs. And to you, friends, thank you. This is the end of our season, but we'll be back in the fall. Take care. I'm David Shearman.
Welcome to New York.
This friend group is honestly a beautiful, hot mess.
Oh my God!
We're all just here together, trying to make it.
I feel like I'm in an insane asylum.
It's so important having people to fall back to that you trust and you have love for. Excuse me? You still get money from your dad, $10K a month in allowance.
I would not be on the show if it weren't for me.
Oh, I love being messy.
Next Gen of NYC, all new Tuesdays at 9 on Bravo.
Are you a passionate content creator ready to expand your audience reach? Do you have unique stories, captivating hobbies, or special interests that deserve a spotlight? Rogers TV is here to amplify your voice within the community.